the vast majority of mobile app purchasing and shopping is on a few apps. So think about your own behavior. You're only going to download the app that you're most dedicated to using for shopping or buying, whether it's like a QSR that you go to all the time or your favorite retailer or Amazon.
Hey gang, it's Thursday, September 30th. Yory and listeners, welcome to the Behind the Numbers Daily and eMarketer podcast made possible by VTEX. I'm Marcus, and today I'm joined by Yory Wurmser, our principal analyst covering mobile and technology.
Hey Marcus, how are you?
Hey chat, very good. Thanks for asking. How you doing?
Good.
Very good, very good. Today's fact, before we get started, this one's insane. It might be, I think, one of the most interesting yet. I've built it up too much. If it's not good, don't look. It's okay. If there are 23 random people in a room, there is a 50% chance that two of them share a birthday. It's insane, but it's true. It even has its own name, so it's called the birthday paradox. An article in Scientific American explains the phenomenon. It's hard to explain. I spent about 2 hours trying to not doing research for the episode, but trying to learn what it means. What I think it means is, if you as an individual ask any person what their birthday is, the chance that it's the same as yours is a 0.27% chance, which is a 1 in 365 chance, because it's 365 days. Even if you ask 20 individual people, it's still low. It's less than a 5% chance that you're going to have the same birthday as one of them. However, if you have 23 people all in a room together, and each person is cross-checking their birthday with everybody else. So if Yory went down the line and asked everyone, and Victoria went down the line and asked everyone, and then I did the same, there's a 50% chance that you'll have two of those people will share a birthday.
And if you really want to screw up that calculation, it's probably higher than that, because there are twins in the world. That probably changes that a little bit.
Yory, I literally just learned. I just learned this equation. Can we not throw that into the mix? This one was hard enough without twins. It's a good point. Today's real topic: how much are we actually shopping on our smartphones? So Yory, today we're going to try and figure out how much Americans are shopping on their smartphones, buying things on their smartphones, what that's going to look like in a few years' time, what's encouraging them to shop more, what's holding them back, and what retailers should be thinking about. So we'll start with, Yory, how much Americans are shopping on their smartphones. And we should probably distinguish between shopping and buying. Shopping, browsing, looking around, buying, committing to the purchase, and actually procuring the thing, right?
That's right. I mean, the way we define it is, doing each of those over the past 12 months. So, someone who's used their phone to shop over the last 12 months as a mobile shopper, and who has actually then converted on their phone as a mobile buyer over the past 12 months.
Right. So how many Americans are shopping on their smartphones, and how many Americans are buying things on their smartphones?
So almost everyone, or almost all digital shoppers, are shopping on their smartphones or on their mobile devices. So north of 95%, something like 97.2% in 2021. Mm-hmm. That hasn't increased all that much as a result of the pandemic. But what has changed is how much shopping people are doing on their phones who are shopping, and how many people are converting and how much they're converting since the start of pandemic. So almost everyone's shopping on their phones. We're seeing people spending a lot more of their shopping time on their phones, and converting much more often on their phones.
Mm-hmm. As you said, every American is a shopper pretty much. 8 out of 10 Americans are mobile buyers. And when we're talking about mobile, Yory, we should stress that we do include, most people will think smartphone, and they're quite right in doing so, but we're also including tablet in there. However, today, 80% of mobile buying is on a smartphone. In 4 years' time, 90% will be. So we're really talking about smartphone when we say mobile, right? Yeah,
that's absolutely true. And that's a change from 6 years ago, when more than half of mobile shopping was on tablets still.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so.
Huh. Because tablet m-commerce, you note in your report that you recently wrote on this, it is flat in terms of the dollars. But you do note as well that people are still more likely to convert on a tablet.
Yeah, it's more like the PC or laptop experience. So people are definitely converting more on tablets, but just there are so many fewer people who are doing that than on their smartphones. So the vast bulk of mobile shopping and buying right now is happening on smartphones.
And you also note that consumers use both mobile web and apps to make purchases in roughly similar numbers, according to Comscore's Q2 2020 research. What other research have you seen on the relationship with buying through mobile web versus apps and how that may or may not have changed in the last 18 months?
Yeah, so the big difference between mobile web and mobile app when it comes to shopping and buying is that the vast majority of mobile app purchasing and shopping is on a few apps. So think about your own behavior. You're only going to download the app that you're most dedicated to using for shopping or buying, whether it's like a QSR that you go to all the time or your favorite retailer or Amazon. And you're going to actually have a large bulk of your shopping in those areas, but everything else, that gigantic long tail, is going to happen on the mobile web. And that's kind of how it divides out. You got about, a good half of your commerce happening on apps, but that's super concentrated on a couple apps, and everything else is happening on mobile web.
I was surprised to see, so 40 cents of every dollar spent online is spent on a mobile device. The other 60 cents going to computers. That's going to grow to 44 cents of every online retail dollar in a few years' time. If you look at how the pandemic has changed mobile shopping or mobile buying, pandemic doubled growth, but then it came right back down to earth again this year. Yeah, I was surprised to see that. It went from about 20% up to about 40% and then back down to 15% this year. Not expecting it to sustain 40% growth going forward, and it will be kind of healthy mid kind of teen double digits growth going forward. But were you surprised to see mobile buying come down so much 2021 in terms of the growth, especially considering people outside more?
Honestly, I had the opposite feeling.
Oh, really?
I was kind of surprised how well it held up. Basically, if you think about how much more we all spent on our phones during the pandemic, and all these new types of behaviors we did, like, maybe not we, because we're all kind of early adopters, or most of us are, but the average American spent a lot more time doing grocery shopping, daily buying on their phones than just hopping into a local store than they may have in the past. Really interesting that, when shoppers were surveyed on this, about 70% of them said that they would keep their pandemic habits, mobile shopping habits. I think that's from a Deloitte survey, post-pandemic. So people are actually sticking to these pandemic-related changes where they're shopping more on their phones, and they're sticking to that. So the fact that then, mobile commerce not only held at the very elevated pandemic shopping level, but actually gained 15% is super impressive.
That moves me on nicely to my next question, which is what's encouraging people to shop more on their phones, and then also for them to continue that behavior, for it to remain sticky?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple things that were encouraging people. First of all, just the pandemic made things, like accelerated things tremendously. People were forced to use their phones, and you couldn't go into shopping, so they were forced to use their phones and their laptops, their desktops to do shopping, whereas before they had to do it all on. That they didn't have to, but a lot of people just, did a lot of daily shopping by going into stores. So the pandemic was one thing, but it's too easy. You're also seeing a lot of behavioral shifts within consumers. So you're seeing a lot more, as I mentioned, just this daily shopping. People are used to it now, to doing their grocery shopping, doing their food shopping, ordering just very small orders from Amazon or Target or Walmart. They're used to doing that on their phones now. So that's driving it. You're seeing click and collect becoming a lot more important, also supercharged by the pandemic. People ordered things and then picked it up curbside. You're seeing technological advances, so a lot more seamless buying options where, it's just super easy now to one-click buy things. A lot of retailers have gotten up to speed on that. So that encouraged people. And then lastly, a lot of the social media companies have made it a lot easier to buy things as well. So that combination of behavioral, technological, and kind of new media innovations have all supercharged and are going to continue to lead people to buy more on their phones.
Right. If I could push you to pick one that you think in, let's say, next year will really kind of fuel growth on a mobile phone in terms of buying things on your mobile phone, do you think it's going to be those learned habits, buying food, buying groceries? Do you think it's going to be technological advancements, like you mentioned, the kind of one-touch payment systems, or you mentioned in your report, augmented reality, 5G, or something like new channels, something like a social commerce, a live shopping? If you had to point to one for next year that's going to fuel growth, what would you point to?
So I'm going to split that up and answer in a couple of parts. So what I think the changed behaviors have already changed. So the stickiness that we're seeing in terms of the growth and, that it's continuing, people are shopping more based on, where they were at the beginning of this year. The organic growth that's going to shift more people onto mobile is because of these behavioral changes. So that's there. That's kind of a constant over the last couple of years. I think what's going to improve this year that's going to drive new shoppers is increased one-click and more seamless buying. You saw a huge improvement of that during the pandemic as retailers were forced to improve their online and particularly their mobile shopping experience. I think you're going to continue to see that going forward. I think longer term, so not necessarily in the next 6 to 12 months, but over the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to see better visualizations, things like augmented reality, and the improvements coming from 5G, which in part of that is going to be augmented reality, but also just much more seamless, secure payments as well. So I think those are going to be the drivers in the next few years. The drivers this year are going to be the reduced clunkiness of the buying experience, and kind of underpinning all of that are the changed consumer behavior habits.
What's holding mobile shopping and buying back, in your opinion?
I think I alluded to that a second ago, and I think it's still the small screen makes it harder to visualize some of this stuff. It makes it harder to input information about the order. So, as those things improve with, one-click buying and, more visualizations, whether it's augmented reality or shoppable video or things like that, I think that's going to eliminate some of that. But I would say that the small screens, which lead to clunkiness and kind of an inferior visualization of the products, that's what's been holding it back.
Mm-hmm. One thing that jumped out to me in your report, which I found fascinating, was just this idea that the smartphone isn't without its competitors. And you say in your report that we estimate the average US adult spent an hour and a half consuming media from other connected devices. In 2020, that was up 30%. But by 2023, we'll add another 20 minutes, so getting up to 1 hour and 50 minutes. You note that that's not close to the 4.5 hours a day that we expect the average US adult to spend with those non-voice activities on mobile. So 4.5 with non-voice activities on mobile versus nearly 2 hours on other connected devices. It's by 2023. But you note that other connected devices could steal minutes and dollars from mobile. We're talking about CTV. You even noticed connected TVs. You also noted connected cars and smart glasses as well.
Yeah, I think the big cannibalization is going to come from connected TV because there are such obvious ways to do commerce over. You can have shoppable video on there. You can have ads that you can click on. So I think you're going to definitely see a big increase in commerce coming from connected TV. I think longer term, it could be completely untethered wearables, smart glasses, things like that might take some commerce away from smartphones. Although I think in general, I think that that's still kind of in the distant future. More than 5 years, we're going to see a significant dip in m-commerce coming from these other, as a result of commerce shifting to some of these other wearable devices. But connected TV is already happening and undoubtedly is going to bite into m-commerce to some extent. It probably is going to slow down growth rather than actually lead to a decrease in e-commerce growth. But yeah, that's where the big threat comes.
Final question for the lead story. What should retailers be doing to embrace this mobile shopping / buying behavior?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think as a retailer, you have to think about how you can reach not just your existing audience on mobile, but figure out where your possible consumers are on mobile. So, that's two parts. One is just make the buying experience for customers incredibly seamless. I think a lot of retailers and most retailers are putting a ton of effort into that already. But I think the bigger question becomes, where can you push it further? I think you can look at social media right now has been really innovative recently in terms of how to make commerce more interesting, more seamless. You're seeing that with, partnerships with influencers, giving them platforms, shoppable video. These are places where I think you're going to see growth in m-commerce, but also partnering with these companies because that's where the mobile buyers already are, either, on the influencer sites themselves and directly on sites like to Know, where, the influencers have their own platform, or places like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Instacart, not just social media places, but, places where people are shopping mobily and going to them and partnering with them and figuring out how to best use them as well.
All right. That's all we've got time for the first halftime now. For the halftime report, Yory, give us one takeaway from the first half.
The gains in mobile commerce during the pandemic are here to stay, and mobile commerce is going to go gangbusters from here on out. So you got to start with mobile from now on.
Terrific. So Yory's report that includes some of this research we've been talking about is called M-Commerce Forecast 2021, What's Driving Growth and What It Means for Retail. That published in just a month ago in August. So check that out. If you're a pro subscriber, you can go to eMarketer.com and start reading that right now. That's all we've got time for the lead story. Time now for In Other News. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, VTEX. Everyone is talking about digital transformation, but what does it mean in real life? Digital Insider is a new podcast series about the digitalization of retail, where business leaders, academics, and thinkers discuss how businesses are transforming and give their perspectives, practical advice, thought process, and lessons learned. Go to digitalinsider.com to learn more, or listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, folks, we are back today in other news. The epic battle with Apple concludes. Where is 5G? And the understanding of looming third-party cookie and IDFA changes. Story 1, the battle between Apple and Fortnite game maker Epic has concluded to a certain extent, which is what exactly? Well, as The Economist explains, Epic had accused the iPhone maker of abusing a monopoly over its App Store by, among other things, forcing developers to use Apple's in-app payment system and to pay excessive commissions of up to 30%. The judge didn't agree exactly, arguing that the relevant market is not the App Store, but digital mobile gaming transactions, as she put it, where Apple competes with Google's Android. Apple may control half the market, but that does not amount to wrongdoing, noted Judge Gonzalez Rogers. However, she did note that although Apple did not violate federal antitrust laws, it had engaged in anti-competitive conduct under California's competition law by stopping developers from including information in their apps that lets users know how to subscribe or buy digital things outside of the App Store. Yory, the decision takes effect in about 3 months. Epic has already appealed. Apple may also. What did you make of the ruling?
So I think it was a ruler that I think both sides could take away a small degree of victory. I definitely think Apple came out much better from this than Epic. So Apple, what it really didn't want was to be called a monopoly or to have the basis there to be called a monopoly. They avoided that clearly. Epic lost most of the different parts of the ruling, including that part. Where Apple lost was that they have to open up their payment systems to other providers, payment services. So they're going to lose money. For Apple, this could be billions of dollars, but when you look at the scheme of how much money Apple makes, it's not a huge amount of money. There's going to be enough clunkiness in the system for people to go out of the app to pay, or going out of the App Store to pay. So I do think that Apple will lose money, but they avoided the real danger, which was being called a monopoly in this area. Mm-hmm. So I think they're overall relieved, whereas Epic has already announced that they're going to appeal because they lost the key argument, which is that Apple has monopolized this space and is using it to constrict the market.
Story 2. Where is 5G? 2 years into the 5G era, expensive new cellular networks have blanketed much of the country, but they have yet to change our lives, writes Ina Fried of Axios. She notes that, quote, while the iPhone and most other high-end smartphones being sold right now support 5G, the bulk of Americans have yet to move to such devices. And the US is one of the earliest adopters of 5G, along with South Korea and China, close quote. Yory, to her question, where is 5G?
5G is about where it should be. I mean, I think people have, and I think a lot of the fault is the telecom companies that advertise and branded it as super transformative. It will be, but it's incrementally going to get that way. People are looking at download speeds, which have increased or doubled for a portion of the population. That's about where you'd expect after a couple of years of network development. The real changes are going to come when you get these standalone 5G networks that are completely 5G, that have really low latency. And they're going to start seeing impacts on cloud gaming, augmented reality, things like that. So the changes are still to come. It's going to be a big deal. It just takes time.
Yeah. Ms. Fried notes that people also don't need 5G as much now that they're at home. And also there was some research showing that people are more concerned with battery life, storage space, screen resolution, and more durability for their new smartphone or when buying a new smartphone than 5G, according to a March 2020 GWI survey. Story 3, 97% of advertisers use third-party cookies. 88% use first-party data, 52% IDFA in iOS, and 47% Google's Ad ID, notes an April 2021 Advertiser Perceptions survey. 7 out of 10 advertisers are confident in their understanding of the looming third-party cookie IDFA changes. However, over 8 out of 10 are concerned about the impacts to their business. As of May 2021, just 2 out of 5 advertisers had already implemented solutions to address audience targeting and measurement post third-party cookies and maids. Yory, your thoughts on this research?
It's not surprising that companies depend super heavily on these identity tracking tools like cookies and IDFA. The changes are huge. The advertising industry is going to have to shift towards more probabilistic identities and more contextual advertising. And first-party data directly from publishers. There's no way around that.
Mm-hmm. That's all we've got time for this episode. Yory, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. And thank you so much to Victoria. She edits the show. Thanks to everyone listening. We'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully, for the Behind the Numbers Weekly Listen, an eMarketer podcast made possible by VTEX.